Time for the new main event. We got Paul Felder versus Rafael dos Anjos. No lines on best fight odds, but from what I've seen on Twitter, a lot of people are saying that they're saying minus 150, minus 155 on RDA, plus 125, plus 130 coming back on Paul Felder. And I kind of get that. It's a solid line. It's a good line. And if that line sticks around, especially when it gets over to my books, I might have to take a little bit of a play on Dos Anjos here. So a lot of people are going out there and saying that, Paul Felder has remained active, which is why he's able to go out there and make 155 pounds on 6 or 7 days notice. And Dos Anjos obviously is going back to 155, so that's going to be great for him too. Apparently, Paul Felder has been training for a marathon that's supposed to take place in March, if I'm not mistaken. So he's been getting ready nice and early, so he's already in shape. Now, my question is, how much of that shape is going towards, getting ready for a triathlon, and how much is it, him actually hitting pads, doing drills when it comes to MMA or anything like that? I'm not certain that's something that he's going to be able to say that he did over the last however many weeks that he's been training for this triathlon. Now with Dos Anjos, like I said actually, you guys haven't even seen the Islam Makhachev breakdown, because literally as soon as I finished hitting record on that, the fight got pulled. So that footage doesn't get to see the day of light. But let's spend a little bit of time on Dos Anjos. So he is coming back down to 155. We saw him time and time again go up to at 175 pounds or 170 pounds, I should say, and face overwhelming grapplers that are much stronger than him. Yeah, he had a good solid run at the beginning of his 170 debut. He beat Neil Magny, he beat Robbie Lawler. I believe Tarek Safadine as well was at 170. And then he ran into Colby Covington in a fight where he won 2 rounds on a couple of judges' scorecards. Kamaru Usman, where he won at least 1 round on a couple of judges' scorecards. The Kevin Lee fight, where he just waited for Kevin Lee to kind of just, blow his gas tank, and then he was able to get that arm triangle choke in round 4. And then the Leon Edwards fight, that one was a weirder one, because Edwards, primarily a striker, but he's doing a good job of implementing his entire MMA game. Just like in his fight with Gunnar Nelson, it kind of shocked everybody where he was the one going out there and going for the takedown right off the bat, just as he did in this Dos Anjos fight, where he took down Dos Anjos within the first 30 to 40 seconds of this fight. Again, the Edwards and Chiesa fights, we really saw the strength of a 170 pounder really overwhelmed Dos Anjos. I think that's the reason he decided to go back to 155, which is kind of a division where he should be able to go back to his roots in terms of how he got to that title run and how he got to to capturing the title. He was able to go out there and have some solid striking exchanges for sure. Very aggressive, walking his opponents down, putting combinations together, ending them with leg kicks. Beautiful striking for sure. But also sometimes you saw him go out there and kind of just grapple fuck guys. Like he was pushing them up against the cage, taking them down, has solid jiu-jitsu as well, so he's able to keep them down too. And I think that's where Paul Felder runs into trouble here, where Dos Anjos, he's I believe he was at King's MMA first, and now he's gone down to Brazil for at least the last 2 or 3 months. He spent time at Novo União, with Andre Pederneiras. I'm sure he got some work in with Jose Aldo. That's a solid team down there in Brazil. And I feel like him going back to his roots, him going back to, Brazil, living down there with his kids and all that stuff, it may, if anything, reinvigorate him to go out there and have solid performances again. And this is, the Makhachev fight was one, and as to why he was like a plus 400 underdog in that fight, but this Paul Felder one is a little bit easier for him to like slide back into that 155-pound division. I don't think he's completely shot. He's 36 years old. He just turned 36 actually about 2 weeks ago. I still think he's capable of having top 10 type performances. Maybe not capture the title again, but at least stick around in that top 10 and beat guys like a Paul Felder, which I think he'll absolutely be able to do this weekend. I think the striking is kind of going to be similar, with Dos Anjos probably having a little bit more of an aggressive edge, in my opinion. Obviously, him being more ready for 5 rounds. Paul Felder, cardio-wise, could probably be ready for 5 rounds based on just training for a triathlon alone. But again, like fighting 5 rounds compared to just running, jogging, whatever the fuck a triathlon entails, it's completely different. Different paces, different styles, different bursts, all that type of stuff. It's completely different. And And Dos Anjos has done the championship rounds thing so many times. In the last 5 years, he's had 12 fights. Nine of them have gone to, or nine of them were scheduled for 5 rounds. And of those 9 fights, 7 of them have gone to at least the fourth round. I believe it was one that went to the fourth round. The other 6 went to a decision. So he's seen 5 rounds. He is used to 5 rounds. Paul Felder, on the other hand, I believe the Dan Hooker one was his only 5 round fight, at least in the UFC. Yeah, that was the only one, especially the only one being scheduled for 5 rounds as well too. So this is only going to be a second time. It's very hard to make a case for Paul Felder here, coming in on 6 days notice against a guy who has been training for the last several weeks, maybe even 2-3 months now. Because if you guys remember, Dos Anjos and Makachev were actually scheduled to fight at UFC 254 in the middle of October. So they've been scheduled to fight for a while now, and Dos Anjos has definitely been getting the training in. So I like what I've been seeing from Dos Anjos in terms of his IG. Going back to Brazil. Paul Felder, a lot of people are starting to like him recently just because of him stepping into the commentator role and doing such a great job too. I definitely put Paul Felder up there in like top 2, top 3 commentators that I really enjoy listening to. But in terms of fighting itself, I find it hard to believe that he'll be able to go out there and beat Dos Anjos. Dos Anjos, in my opinion, has solid durability. He's only lost via finish 3 times in the UFC. I don't think Paul Felder holds the type of power to knock out Dos Anjos. It's tough for me to really see how Felder wins this fight. I think Dos Anjos is just going to be too aggressive for him, and then take into consideration mixing in takedowns and the jiu-jitsu and all that. I think this is where Dos Anjos is going to be, and luckily for him, this is the type of fight that he needs to get settled at 155 once again. So shout out to Paul Felder for taking the fight on super short notice, keeping it at 155 and keeping it as a 5-rounder. That it takes a lot of balls to do that on 6 days notice. We've seen during this COVID era, there's been so many times where guys take fights even on like 2 or 3 weeks notice, and they ask for the fight or the main event fight to be a 3-rounder compared to a 5-rounder. So that's I find that to be a little bit sketchy. So big shout out to Paul Felder for keeping the integrity of the sport and the main event status of this fight. So final prediction here. I definitely like Dos Anjos. I definitely like him at those minus 150 odds. So we'll see what they're at once they drop on Bookmaker or Pinnacle, as those are my 2 main go-to books. I love Dos Anjos here. I think he gets... I don't know if he gets the finish because Felder is quite durable himself. Last time he's been finished he had a doctor stoppage via cut to Trinaldo back in September of 2016. But yeah, he's never actually been finished outside of that. So I'd say he's quite durable. And I think we'll see like a complete overall game from Dos Anjos here. If anything, maybe Dos Anjos via submission. That might be something if he gets this fight to the ground and starts kind of controlling Paul Felder there. But I'm going to go with the safe side, and I'll say Dos Anjos to win this fight via decision. I love that Dos Anjos is back at 155, and this is definitely a much easier fight for him to get settled back at that division. So once again, I'll be taking Rafael Dos Anjos to win this fight via decision.